I regret some of my life choices. Okay, so uh, over the course of 5 hours on August 1st, aka Digimon Day, no, I didn't know that at the time, I ran through the top 16 of all three regionals that have happened since BT13 came out. I slightly regret this decision. But here is the first one, going in with the PPG event run for North America with 414 folks. We will be going through every single one of the top 16 decks, as well as looking over Jeffinetly Jeff's freaking amazing infographic breakdowns of deck win percentages and comparison between how the different decks played. It's a whole thing. If you want to know what I'm talking about, go to Twitter at Jeffinetly Jeff, Jeff. They've been doing this since, I want to say, BT12, and they're just these amazing infographics with so much information just about how deck matchups generally tend to go, so we can see a lot of bias. And in this case, we sort of saw that Shine Greymon is functioning as this weird filter between you've lost 2 games and you've won 2 games throughout the NA region. It was delightful. You'll see as we go through this. I just also know this is like a 2-hour video, so have at it. I'll have written content that will go with this at some point, but I might have overscheduled because this is Tuesday. I have Wednesday, except that some of my partners are lovely people are trying to get me to do stuff to take care of myself on Wednesday. Then an online regional as part of Gen Con on Thursday, and then at stupid early in the morning, I'm flying out to Gen Con on Friday morning. So I don't have very much time, so the written content might not be out as quickly as I want. Just a warning, but here you have all of my absurd ramblings as I bounce off with chat as we look over all the deck lists from PPG. So have fun with that. I don't know why that was there. Because I forgot to clear it, that's why. Okay. I'll be honest. This is gonna be a lot. I don't know why I decided to do this. Actually, I do. I do know exactly why I decided to do this, and it's mostly because every time I went, okay, I have the deck lists ready now, someone would go, literally in our like team text chat or in the Colorado locals would go, hey, have you seen this weird tech from the TAC regionals? And I went, right, fuck the TAC regionals. Okay, TAC's always weird and they should be quick to go through. Sure. Wait, what the hell do you mean you have a top 16 even though you only had 74 players? Crap. Okay, fine. Start getting them down. And the second that I had all of the TAC videos down, or TAC deck lists down, I looked over and saw, oh, the regional from Latam is up now too, so I can also grab that. Fuck! Okay, I guess I will. So, we're covering 3 different goddamn regionals, kill me. This should be interesting to say the least. I also have music going mostly so I stay a little bit sane, though I might turn that down a little bit. It sounds a little loud to me. Or looks a little loud on the mixer. Okay. So yeah, we have 3 different regionals to talk about. I'm going to be starting up with PPG, both because it's the most recent and of the ones that I have player counts for, it is the highest player count one. We don't have a player count for the Nest run. Still a bit loud. Oops. Part of that's because it's linked. And I think this was... Oh, this is set to run with iTunes, and I'm running this off Spotify because it's just Lo-Fi Leah now. Well, hey, good to get that out of the way before we get to the... hang on. Yeah, get out. before we get to the stuff that's actually important and that'll have to record it, or edit and crap. So, yeah. Yeah, we're starting off with PPG because, one, we have a wider player base. Two, as far as I can tell, the supply chain issues did not directly affect Latam or Oceania this time, but historically they do. So usually the first couple of weeks of a new set are a little very weird for them. And third, we have a bunch of extra information about the PPG event because of a delightful judge, Jeff Ruberg, who has been doing these infographics for, God, I want to say since BT 11, maybe 12, where he basically just grabs the, or not grabs, but gets the win rates and matchups from different events so that we can compare them properly. This works especially well with PPG because during PPG's deck list submission, they require that you give them like a general idea of what your deck is. So usually just like Shine Gray, War Gray X, Black War Gray, whatever it is that they're running, or at least what they think they're running. Though I know Jeff has done this for other things too, where that means having to go through and look at all of the deck lists manually and figure out what the fuck they are. And there's some proof that that's getting a little weird with our current format in these infographics, but we'll get to those later. Then we're going to do the Latam one because, again, while I don't have player numbers for it, it is definitely more populous than the TAC event. Because the Latam event ran 7 rounds. 7 rounds with then followed to a cut to top 8. Amusingly, this basically means that everything that this means that we have proper placements for it's, I'm trying to remember what the full acronym stands for, but it's Latin America and Mexico, I believe. Because technically Mexico isn't South America, it's Central America, and so LATAM is the generally accepted acronym. And I don't believe this TO, the Nest, is a regular TO. I think they only had one TO before, and I believe this is a different one than they used to have. And then Oceania has TAC, which it was only a 74-player event, though I believe from... I should not have closed this. My literal only complaint about Eggman's website, because I fucking adore it in every other possible way, is I wish it had a dark mode because it's so bright. TAC... Yeah, TAC was only 6 rounds. And you can see bits of it because it had elements of coverage. Mario streamed it. But it was still only 74 players, so I'm not placing it as high on the priority list, basically. Plus, frankly, Oceania has weird shit. Like, again, Latam and Oceania both have relatively well-established supply chain issues, so a lot of the time they do some very intriguing things. That, and especially in Oceania, they know that TAC is a hellspace as a TO, so they tend to just run goofier stuff, and I kind of appreciate it. So let's jump right the hell in with the first one. Which means I should, actually make sure that this is set up to work properly. Probably like 98% sure that this will work properly when we cut over to it. We'll see. going to lose my mind. I swear, every time they update the Stream Deck, it swaps audio settings from mute and unmute to toggle. Because this is supposed to be an unmute, but it's a toggle. Okay, well, now it's fixed, and now hopefully I'll never have to deal with it again. That's a lie, I will. Okay. Hang on. I don't need that's audio. Cool. So, this is the first place list done, piloted by George. I'm gonna screw up that name for sure. Dogenzi? Sure. You've been quiet all day, but of course you start barking once we start this. Oh, damn it, I didn't notice that this is one of the ones that got imported screwy. I knew there was one. There had to be one that I missed. So annoyingly, all of these deck lists are collated very, very helpfully, thank God for that, over at Eggman Events. The one problem is that Eggman is sponsored by DigimonCard.io, who I hate with a fiery passion because their download images are terrible. So I tend to re-import them over into DigimonCard.app, who I like significantly more. Bite me. Unfortunately, every once in a while, especially when it's the first deck list that I import, sometimes they do weird stuff like this, like have the egg in the middle, and the options not at the end because there's weird crap. So, we'll just deal for now, because they did do like a live deck profile on stream with Mario? I think it was Mario. The day of. But frankly, in a lot of cases, this is actually fairly standard for a Belphemon. Probably the weirdest piece of it is only running 3 XTs. You know, this might actually annoy me enough that I might see if I can go re-download it just to... Because I'm a goblin and save all of them, so there's a chance it will have saved properly. Oh, not even kind of. Cool. Apparently I forgot to save it? This is my suffering. Okay. Export. I do these things to myself. I know that I do these things to myself. X. I will just have to cut all of this out for the recording because, damn it, I'm not saving this file. This was July 29th? I've already forgotten. I was in this and I've already forgotten. Because time is soup. Okay. Save. Hope that it actually saves this time. Hey, it's importing properly. Good. Copy name. Okay, now comes the part where it maybe breaks this, but oh well. Hey, it didn't. Good. It just loaded. Beautiful. Love when it works properly. It happens so fucking rarely. That's the old one. This is the new one. Cool. Now it's fixed. Okay. So like I said, this is the first place deck list for a Belphemon run by George Dogant. It's Dogantzis. I have no idea how I'm supposed to pronounce that. Anyway, it's relatively standard. Honestly, the Debbie Mara is arguably just the best egg for most purple decks, but especially for Belphemon. Psychmon, because it punishes Royal Knights more than anything else. Even then, it doesn't... Actually, no, it does punish Royal Knights. I'm thinking of the Solar and Chikurimon. Doesn't quite punish as well. Phasgomon, because you actually want to keep your hand relatively low, and if you have to Evo, the end of turn effect is, or end of opponent's turn effect is still pretty good. If you haven't seen the way this deck works, its primary focus is to do some slightly goofy things. Thank you very much for the new follow. One, it wants to keep its hand at or below, but arguably for card advantage, as close to 6 cards in hand as possible and never go above. It also wants to fill its trash pretty aggressively because a lot of its cards directly interact with things in trash. So almost everything up until the level 5s, in one way or another, draw and trash cards. So Proto Gizmon plays for 3. On play, you can pop an your own egg to... Ooh, that's too big. You can pop your own egg to kill... to reduce the cost by 2, which is stopped by a Psychmon, including your own. It's a little annoying, but eh. Then all of the Gizmons have basically an on-deletion to, if you have enough other Gizmons in your trash, play out their next level up. So you can do stuff like play a Proto Gizmon popping an egg for 1, then draw 1, trash 1, play out a Gizmon AT, so deeply stupid, for 2 by popping the Proto Gizmon, draw 2, trash 1, then do the Proto Gizmon effect, where if you have enough other things with Gizmon in their name in trash, you can return 2 of them to the bottom of the deck to play out another Gizmon AT from trash for free to do the draw 2, trash 1 again, and get up into XT, who on play plays out a what is his name? Akihio, the tamer for the deck, from trash. And is a blocker. So for very little memory, you can scale up quite quickly. It's a little bit less delicate in my experience than Shine, because it has other ways to get into that. The major downside, obviously, is that all of the Gizmons can't evolve, so you're very reliant on their plays for card draw, as well as stuff like Eismon Scatter Mode for card draw. And in a lot of cases for lethality, because Eismon Scatter Mode, as anyone who's ever played Purple knows, secretly has jamming written on it. In case they have to Evo, the deck does still run stuff like, again, the Devimon is a pretty classic. This is the starter deck Devimon, so Evo's for 1, has blocker, just so you're slightly less likely to get murdered. Can't attack, but you're really not attacking in this deck unless you're swinging with Eismon Scatter Mode. Maybe Eismon, because you got it out for free, or with Belfmon Rage Mode. And Omnimon Sword, but yeah. The cutest tech here is probably the Nidhoggmon, because the Nidhoggmon has, when discarded from hand, you gain a memory for it. So functionally, this says, I have a Belfmon Sleep Mode in play. If you swing at me, I will discard 2 to end the attack and gain 2 memory. So it's honestly pretty solid. The primary issue that I always have with it is that you can only ever do that once, so they're going to be sitting in your hand as relatively dead cards, because most of the time you probably don't want to discard them unless you're using it as like a play extender, but it's fine. Everything about this is fine and makes perfect sense. The only thing that I'm a little surprised by is George's choice to go with Purple Mem Boost as opposed to the usually selected Mist Mem Boost. So Purple Mem Boost obviously is the classic, look at top 4, take one that's purple, throw the rest of the bottom, and it's a Mem Boost. Mist Mem Boost is the trash 2 draw 1. And I guess the idea being, well, if I trash them off Mist Mem Boost, I'm not gaining any benefit that I would from trashing them from hand. But it really is just Nidhoggmon who has that benefit. One thing that I am kind of surprised by, though, is the 3 Gift of Darkness. It feels like a lot of Belfmon players are kind of split on Gift of Darkness. For 6, it's delete a level 6 Digimon, I believe. Yes, for 6, delete one of your opponent's level 6 or higher Digimon, then one of your Digimon may digivolve into a Belfmon sleep mode from trash without paying the cost. Essentially, it's a way to get back into Sleepy Boy, so that you can get another Rage mode under it, get the protection effect up. But in a lot of cases, it doesn't feel like that 6 cost, like 6 cost is going to be that worth it. But it does feel like they were planning on teching everything in here against Royal Knights, because the Psychmons are there to counter Royal Knights. The Gift of Darkness destroys Royal Knights. It is another recycle too, but in a lot of cases, it feels like a lot of wannabe Belfmon players, for lack of a better way of describing it, have just gotten unimpressed with it. Largely because I believe you do the same, don't you? Yes. The Akihiro Kurta end of turn effect, end of opponent's turn effect, does a very similar thing, minus the evolution part. End of opponent's turn, once per turn, draw 1, then trash 1. Then, by placing this tamer under one of your Digimon with Belfmon in its name as its bottom Digivolution card, delete one of your opponent's level 6 Digimon. However, notably, both of them do very, very cutely, and I like this, get around the Craniamon protection, because new BT13 Craniamon has the mildly silly protection effect where on play and on Digivolve, for the turn, he cannot be affected by Digimon effects. However, Akihiro is a tamer effect, and Gift of Darkness is a option effect, so it's a cute little workaround to avoid that. More than anything, I think Belfmon looks like fun, but frankly, I think part of how this worked is that they likely did not have to go up against too many Mirage Gaugamons, because Mirage Gauga is so good at making you fill your hand that it would both turn off a lot of their own abilities, and bouncing almost anything in this deck back to hand is just aggravating, because there's a significant ability to combo up, but not necessarily just go off. I don't know how they do this. They're perfectly quiet all day, and then I start doing this, and... Anyway, on to our next one, because we have spent so much time on the first one already. However, I do think this is one of the only Belfmons we're going to get to see. Second place from... I wanted to say yesterday. Time is just blurred together. Is this Hunter's deck, run by Riley Hook? H-O-U-K. Sorry if I mispronounced that. I will be honest, this is a fairly bog-standard Hunters list. There's an argument that there's sort of a flex spot in Hunters, which some folks will use for overflowing power. Some folks will... I should probably turn the alerts off for this if I'm going to be streaming it, but oh well. Some folks will use for, in this case, a 4th Watchmaker. It's very clearly intended to just try and outspeed a lot of the existing decks. They're sticking with the 4 Arrestra here, which I don't always... Arrestra Superior, which I don't always love, just because against Royal Knights, it's utterly useless, aside from getting an extra swing. But, that's the 7th place list. We'll get to that one. Generally, if you're focused more on Royal Knights, the Omni Shoutmon is probably going to be the solution that you're trying to use, so that you can get more checks and throw Clockmon underneath to make sure it has jamming, since there's just nothing in Royal Knight security that's actually scary. While Arrestron Superior mode, I just find to be a little weird, just because this is going to be defined by the Royal Knights matchup, because when we get to the graphics, Royal Knights had a pretty significant showing here. Probably more than most people are expecting. I don't love Superior Mode against Royal Knights. It's arguably better against Shine, but I feel Hunters generally has a bad matchup against Shine no matter what you're going to do, because most of your level 4s, which is where you're going to be doing a lot of your focus, are just so squishy that a very slight Shine stack can kill it. If literally a bad Shine stack of either of the Agumons that doesn't card draw under a Greymon that just played out a Memory Set or Marcus, and any one of the level 4s dies. Which, However, besides that, this is actually pretty straightforward. One of the other things you might see in a semi-flex spot would be sometimes the Astamon, especially if they're running Quartzmon, but they really seem to have just gone in ham here for the I need to punch them before they kill me, instead of the cute plays of jumping into Quartzmon for slightly less than an absurd amount of memory, so... Oh, hang on. That's actually a thing I need to go deal with right now. There we go. Sorry, wasn't sure if that was audible, but there's a hole in our fence right now, and our dogs are doing stupid things. Okay. Like, it's not big enough that dogs can go through, but big enough that they can do stupid things, so... Anyway, we are now on to the third place, Peter Fraquise, Royal Knights. I'm very sorry about all these last names. Oh, wow, I did not notice that they were doing the second mop-up. Oh, but they don't have the cute tech. Aw, okay. So there are generally two strategies that I've seen developing around Royal Knights. Either, sorry, I'm looking more at their numbers and seeing it's just a little screwy. So, there are two general strategies. One is to flip off whoever the hell keeps driving outside my window with... Why? Every time I want it to be a YouTube recording, they do this. Okay. Two general strategies that have been forming. Either the just go all in on the Royal Knights and commit to the bit, or the BT13 Royal Knights, or this sort of thing where they get a bunch of cute, spicy tech. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but it's one of those things where the deck doesn't have the card draw to necessarily always get into your cute tech if it's a one-of thing. So, this is pretty bog standard right up until... Well, the two CLs is actually a little surprising, essentially. She is a search, which, again, the deck could definitely use more search, and throws the things that you don't take into trash, which... it can kind of use between Alphamon, kind of Gankumon, and Lord Knight. Again, sort of depends. I'm a little surprised to see them at 3 on Omeka, because Omeka just feels too vital. Omeka plays for 4, on play, draw 1, and then on deletion, you can throw a Digimon with Royal Knights and its traits under your King Drazel. So it's one of the few ways to get cards under without having to hard play them. And given some of the other tech that they're running, I'm a little surprised that they are running it at 3. Mostly because they've got the Jesmon GX, who you never want to have to hard play to get him under. So you're having to rely on playing... oh goodness, what is your name? Royal Knights of the Purge or Omeka to get Jesmon GX under, so I'm just surprised to see Omeka at only 3. The other kind of a notable thing is they've got new Gallantmon, BT13 Gallantmon, at only 1. While there was some idea that you would probably want Gallant at 4, that seems to have petered off a little bit, but 1 is still relatively low, considering he's one of the few Royal Knights in the deck who actually can reduce his own play cost as well. I'm a little surprised. One of his primary issues that I know some folks have pointed out is that he has a weird time killing mid-range stuff. So hanging out at your level 5s is usually a way to escape, but the Perkoopa's not that Tex, like that cute. Perkoopa's a pretty established tech piece at this point. In this case, it's more notable because you can't search it, but I'll get to that other one in just a minute. I'm also a little surprised by the only one of for Ulforce, because Ulforce is one of your better tools for fighting against Raid War Grey, which generally has a pretty good game against Royal Knights, because they don't care that you're not going to be unsuspending your Digimon. They'll just raid into them and kill it. They generally have really solid protection, and Ulforce is one of your few ways of removing that protection, so I'm a little surprised to see that. I'm also personally against old Crania as opposed to new Crania. New Crania has on play and when digivolving immune to Digimon effects, and then at end of turn, make an opponent's Digimon attack, or you may, but still. Old Craniamon, I just don't like that much, because all he does is block and make it so that blockers can't be deleted by opponent's effects. Fun fact, being DP reduced is not being deleted by an opponent's effect. And it seems like a lot of their tech here is concern about shine, but tech that doesn't necessarily work the way they want it to. I'm also, again, surprised to see Dynas at only 3, because Dynas is, again, one of your primary searchers, and one of the few ways that you make sure that you're getting cards under King Drazel early, because turn 1, play Dynas for 5, while kind of expensive, is not that bad for search 4, take 2, and if he doesn't die, schlorp him under King Drazel. On the other side, 2 for Lord Knight also feels a little odd to me, just because her opponent's turn effect is mostly just a I need to not lose effect, and her on-play recovers something from trash, which I guess with 2 Sistermon CL, they're worried is going to happen more, but again, they've cut down their Dynas, so I'm a little surprised. Okay, Jesmon GX. I like the Jesmon GX tech. I think it's goofy and probably not very good, but I like it because you can use Jesmon GX in conjunction with Second Mappa to do some very strange things. Though notably, I would want different... I would definitely want some different Royal Knights in here for some of them. So, Jesmon GX, it has a when digivolving trigger, which will be important in a second, don't worry. When digivolving, you may place one card with Royal Knights and its traits and a play cost of 13 or less from your hand or trash under this Digimon as a spot and Digivolution card. Activate one of that card's when digivolving effects as an effect of this Digimon, then Blitz. And then passive all turns, while a card with Royal Knights and its traits is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, this Digimon gains Piercing and Blocker and gains Security Attack +1 for each such card. So, when you play it out either by Purge the Royal Knights, Omnimon, or Genku, you can then, assuming you have the memory for it, use Psych and Mappa to activate the when digivolving effect. So, Psych and Mappa for 3, again, I like because you can actually hit the color requirement, which we'll get to why I'm a little weird on Kongyu here because of that. While you have a Digimon with Royal Knights and its traits in play, you may use this card without meeting its color requirement. Doesn't matter that much, but hey. Main, unsuspend one of your Digimon, so you can also use it for an extra swing on Gallant if you need to pop something else, or on... Actually, I believe Gallant's the only one that has a when attacking trigger off the top of my head. Unsuspend one of your Digimon, then if that Digimon is Jesmon GX, activate its when Digivolving effect. So if you have a Jesmon GX, it essentially means, cool, I've got a 15k body I can swing with once, then I can unsuspend it with Psych and Mappa and get some additional benefit. Not the least of which being, cool, you can throw an Alphamon under and then use Alphamons when Digivolving to lock down the board and throw another Digimon under Jesmon GX to get additional checks. I need to check and see which... I think that's the new Examon, isn't it? Anyway, I think it's cute tech, but the when Digivolving trigger can be a little bit weird, or the additional when Digivolving trigger can be a little bit weird with some of these, which again is part of why I think if you're running it, new Craniumon is a better fit than old Craniumon, because then you can get the I'm not affected by Digimon effects not inheritable when Digivolving. Yes, that is the new Examon. I question the use of new Examon, because frankly, old Examon I think works a little bit better. So they're running the new Examon. On play, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. That Digimon doesn't unsuspend during your opponent's next unsuspend phase, and all turns once per turn when opponent's Digimon becomes suspended, you may activate one of the effects below. Suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, unsuspend one of yours. On paper, that sounds fine. In practice, it's kind of meh. Like, it's not the most impressive thing ever. And usually the old EX3 Exmon does not get used very often, largely because, well, it doesn't have an on play. It only has a when Digivolving. Yeah, but it also has an all turns once per turn when this Digimon becomes suspended, unsuspend it, and suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. Which, in a lot of cases, is actually more useful. Because it means you can swing, then tap down a blocker before they actually get to do anything. With the other Examon, technically it's an option, but it's after they've declared the blocker. So you're still having to deal with that. It's mostly just that the older EX3 Exmon just feels more generally viable in corner cases than BT13, personally. And then obviously they're running Omnimon at four times. I guess you can arguably call the Marcus cute tech, but at this point it's such a standard piece for the deck. He's a memory setter that they hope to never have to actually pay for. He comes out of security, probably kills something, and now you have a memory setter. And if you have to pay for him, cool. He still kills, usually, a Psychmon, because on play he has the I can suspend. You will never gain the one memory because there's nothing in this deck that'll trigger it, but you will suspend, give something minus 3k, oh well. And if for some reason the opponent has to suspend down a Tamer, cool, you get an additional minus 3k on something. Okay, I get why the Kongyu is here, but I hate it. I really hate it. So, I guess it can kind of stop you from dying to hunters. Maybe. And theoretically, the idea of Kongyu is that it stops you from dying to shine, too. But there are two key problems with this. One, it's black. The only way that you can meet the color requirements to play it in this deck are if you play out a Gankumon, Craniumon, or Alphamon first and still have the memory to play Kong you. Which maybe you're doing for Memory Screw, sure. But it's such a weird... It's this bizarre kind of anti-synergy against Shine, because the idea is that you Kong you for 2, main, until the end of your opponent's turn, your opponent's Digimon with play costs of 7 or less can't attack players, and cards can't be added to security stacks by your opponent's effects. So the idea is that it both stops Marcus from swinging, because both Marcuses are 4 and 5, so they cost less once they turn into Digimon. And they won't be able to go into security because of the Rise Greymon inheritables, or main effects if they're the top card. The key problem there is that they both can't attack and can't go to security. The only time Kong you actually helps is if is the extremely weird corner case where they're swinging at you, hit it in security, and they didn't swing with the Marcus first. Which means their deck isn't working anyway. So while I understand it from a logical perspective, I don't think it works as well as they want it to. Because it doesn't send Marcuses to trash, it just stops them from going off? If it becomes a more common tech, I can already see one card that we'll probably see as a workaround for it. But again, it doesn't... All it does is, if it's in security, it stops you from losing to just Marcuses swarming you. However, again, it does work a little bit better against Hunters, since a lot of the time they're going to be, especially against this deck, wanting to... If they can't build the proper stack, they're going to be wanting to swing with their level 4s. So, yes, if it doesn't... It will stop them a little bit, but notably, Hunters can get into a 7 cost pretty consistently, or a 7 and 8 cost or higher, because that would be their Restaurant Superior mode. Who, very cutely, sneaks, I believe, in between Kong you and Alpha, because I believe Alpha is higher than 10? Yeah. So it doesn't even help that much against the Hunters matchup, because they can go into a Restaurant Superior mode, who is a 9 play cost, meaning Alpha doesn't stop them and Kong you doesn't stop them. One other thing before I forget about this, because this apparently came up. In the Royal Knights matchup, King Drasil has a very notable inheritable, which does matter, but not in the way that people have apparently been thinking. Namely, the inheritable on King Drasil, which, given the way the deck works, you will only be able to get 3 of these going at once. Breeding your turn once per turn. When an option with the Royal Knights trait is placed in the battle area, gain 1 memory. That will not trigger if you activate Seiken Mappa, because Seiken Mappa does not place itself in the battle area. It is an option, it just gets used, it costs 3, and that's it. The only 2 cards that will trigger that effect are Purge of the Royal Knights of the Purge, and From Master to Disciple. Those are the only 2 cards in existence at the moment that will trigger that effect. And, because this is a weird niche, yes, this does mean that in the mirror match, if you swing into your opponent's security and hit either of those cards, they will enter play, and you, the attacking player, will gain memory, because it doesn't care that you didn't place it, it just cares that it was placed. But notably, does not trigger trigger off of Seiken Mappa, which has apparently been an issue, is that folks thought that it was just when I use a option, so no. Anyway, on to the 4th place list, our first shine. this is going to be slightly surprising when you get to some of the infographic stuff. Fourth place Shine List run by Ryan. I swear these last names are just here to fuck with me. Sieverkrupp. So, I'm just taking it all in very quickly. One, going with the red base, which feels really strange given everything else that I'm about to say. They're going with the red base, which is the Koromon that lets you card draw when you swing. But they're also running Yellow Mem Boost and TK. Okay. This is a very interesting list, to say the least. So, one, they're still sticking with the Agumon X antibody because technically he is a dinosaur, which means that Geogreymons can evo onto him for only 2. I get it. I don't like it. He only searches 3 and can only grab Greymons, and I'm just... I don't love it. But he also evos for 0 onto an Agumon, so I can see it. They've also decided to go with a slightly different ratio than I personally like with the Agumons. The BT12 at 4 is... You're gonna do it. It's your best searcher. You're gonna do it. The BT13 Agumon has the triggerable main effect to turn a Marcus into a Digimon for free. And while I understand it... I don't love it as much as the card draw off of EX4 Agumon, but they seem to have decided to balance that out slightly differently by going with more of the EX4 Geogreymon, who has the exact same main and inheritable effect, and fewer of the BT12 Geogreymon. I think it's an interesting idea, because it definitely is going to focus a lot more on trying to get Marcus's swinging, but you also just have so much less card draw. And in a lot of cases, the BT13 and EX4 Agumon kind of say the same thing, because EX4 Agumon has start of main phase if you control a red or yellow tamer, or is it just a yellow tamer? Hang on. If you control a red or yellow tamer, yes. Gain 1 memory. So if that happens to be a BT12 Marcus, cool, you can pay the 1 memory to immediately upscale him into a Digimon without losing anything. However, I will say the BT13 one comes in clutch very often because of the very nature of, I can just pay 3 to put him out and turn a Marcus into a Digimon, who pseudo has Rush. It's basically this deck's version of running a 2-cost hybrid. In this case, it's 3, which, less than ideal, but hey. The 4 of the new Geo Grey is pretty standard because you're running 8+ tamers. The hope is they'll be in security, and once you get into a level 5, they will be in security. Like I said, they seem to be going with the EX4 Geo Grey at a slightly higher ratio to make up for the lack of EX4 Agu, because it has the same start of main if you have a Marcus or a yellow or red tamer, gain 1 memory, and inheritable when a red or yellow tamer suspends, draw 1. I'm a little surprised by the BT12 going down to only 2, because this means they only have 9 level 4s, and personally from running this deck, I feel like level 4 is the pinch spot where you end up really hurting if you're missing those cards. So I'm a little surprised to see that. They're running 4 of New Rise Grey, which I would argue is probably the better of the 2, so makes perfect sense. And I'm doing this exact same split too. 3 of BT12 Rise Grey, because BT12 Rise Grey, while he has the same effect and inheritable that makes Marcuses when they die go to security, he does not play 1. Instead, he only gains you a memory when you evo into him. And then 1 Rise X, evos for 1 onto a Rise or 4 onto anything else, play out a Marcus. Or, well, play out a tamer, it's probably going to be a Marcus. And hopefully, if you're doing it on another Rise, gain some memory. Do a pretty significant DP reduction. Again, I'm actually at the exact same ratio myself for 6s and 7s. 2 of BT13 Rise Gray, because while it's good, it's mostly just good if you need a defensive play, because you use it to turn, usually, a BT13 Marcus into a 3k blocker, because it also changes, effectively, his card will now read, if you swing at me, I'm giving something -9 and gaining a memory. Because the BT13 Shine Gray has once per turn, all turns, when a tamer, red or yellow tamer becomes suspended, give something -6k. BT12 Shine Gray is just better for the burst potential, because you can swing with BT12 Marcus, evolve one of your Shine Grays into, Rise Grays into a Shine Gray, give Security Digimon a pretty significant nerf, make Marcus bigger, maybe kill something, swing for 2 checks, and if Marcus clears, great. If he dies, he goes to security, oh well. And then if you still have Marcuses on board, you can burst mode from there and probably take game. The TK is a little surprising. I think their hope is essentially just to try and get cards that aren't their Marcuses back out of security, since you can use stuff like Geogray, well, mostly Geogray, to look through your security already. I can see TK being good. I just don't personally like him because I feel like the deck list is really tight, and I'm gonna get to it in a second. I also am very confused by their option choices. So they've gone with Yellow Mem Boost because they can hit Rise Ruin Mode, or Shine Ruin Mode off of it. But they can't as consistently get into it because they're going with the Red Egg base, which I agree with, but I don't know. I just feel like this is trying to pull themselves in a bunch of different directions. The TK does mean that they're slightly more consistently able to hit the Yellow Mem Boost, but eh. And then the other two options are also slightly befuddling to me. I get Sunrise Buster. I don't love Sunrise Buster as much as Final Shining Burst or Heaven's Judgment, because in a lot of cases, it's just pay 5 to deal an additional -3k on playing a Marcus, but okay. I get it. I think it's fine. I just don't think it's that important. The Shining Burst, or I can't actually see what the heck it's the BT12 option. What are you called? You are not yellow, because that would bring me joy. Or not, yeah, BT12 option. Okay, what is called? There we go. Shining Blast, it's not Burst. Shining Blast, it goes wide, basically. For 5, play 1 Marcus from your hand without paying the cost. For each yellow or red tamer you have in play, 3 of your opponent's Digimon get -2000 DP for the turn. Essentially, it's Sunrise Buster, but wide, and can only play out a Marcus. I just don't feel like going wide has been that important in this meta. I guess it's better for killing Hunters, but I feel like Hunters has a bad matchup into Shine. It's worse for killing anything big that's swinging at you. I don't know. Like, clearly it's worked for them. I don't like the split between... God, I wouldn't. I get why the TK is good. I just don't love the TK, but I can see it. I would just much rather have Heaven's Judgment, because most of the time it's -16, or Final Shining Burst, which even then, I'm still hesitant with that one. But it clearly worked for them, so... I don't like the Yellow Mem Boost with Red Egg. I don't like Yellow Mem Boost with Red Egg. Okay, and now we get into the fun hellspace that is trying to parse what kind of Greymon this is. And I wouldn't even call this a Greymon deck, because there's no War Greys. I'm going to call this a Black War Greymon deck. This is Sean Valena's 5th place Black War Greymon deck. Okay, This one's gonna take a hot minute because it's just so many different pieces. I'm kind of surprised by the tie, to be honest, more than anything else. The BT1 tie. So, we've got 12 Agumons, all of whom are basically just here because they are Agumons that Evo for 0, and they are the best ones. And they're all DP buffing. Yes? This is PPG. We're still in PPG. PPG, then Latam, then TAC, because I'm going to be doing this for hours, apparently. Okay, first of all, I'm happy and very confused that we're finally seeing people remember that the EX1 cards exist, because EX1 Greymon is a goofy idiot, but his inheritable does on swing let you just search... Is it search top 3, or am I thinking of the Agumon from that? Regional. God, we're not talking about the case tourney. There were only 46 players there, and they haven't even put out deck lists in a way that I care to try and hunt up, so... this is... yeah. EX... Oh, no, not options. Not options. Digimon. This will be near the end, because it's an EX set. Where are you? Yes, once per turn, when attacking, you may play a Taikamiya with a play cost of 3 or less from your hand without paying its memory cost. It's basically just an additional way to cheat out BT12 Tai, which... Sure! Sure! I'm trying to figure out how they have space for half of these cards. So they're running 12 rookies. That's... 7, 8, 9 level 4s. Good God, 9 level 5s and 6 level 6s and 2 level 7s. Okay, huh. Oh, this is a beautiful monstrosity. Huh. So they've got both of the Greymon X antibodies because they want the protection effects, which is why I will continue to argue that All Force is better in Royal Knights than people are giving it credit for. They've got... Oh, right, because I needed a second there to go to wonder why they were running BT5 Greymon, but they're running him because, one, worst case, he's a way to evolve for 1 if you have to push out early, but 2, his inheritable also just makes you bigger, which makes swinging into crap like Royal Knights more consistent, and makes Royal Knights way more scared of swinging back at you. Although it does put you in range more consistent. Now that I'm looking at it, they're almost always in range of Gallantmon killing them anyway, so they clearly don't worry that much about that. So yeah, they're using Greymon X Antibody and Greymon X Antibody to protect. They've got both of the different Metal Greys. I love that. Both the Digivolve and Kill Something 3 cost or less? Or is it based on... Oh, it's based on DP, isn't it? That Metal Greymon from BT8 deletes something based on DP, I think. Because it tries to do the... We have 1 effect from red and 1 effect from black. Yes. So the black being D-Digivolve and the red being delete something with 3k or less. Plus the inheritable, letting it swing over unsuspended is great. The Metal Grey X Antibody, just for the we're trashing security, and the very good protection effects. And then Raid War Grey, or Metal Grey. There are too many things named Greymon, and I hate it. The Raid Metal Grey, because they can use the Raid effect to throw out any of their tamers. Yeah, so it's a good way to cheat out the Tai, who they can't cheat out with EX1 Greymon, and they can cheat out Yuya. Honestly, this is just remarkably solid. Like, both of the Omnimons are here either for kill or for the stop me from dying, because let's be honest here, Blitz Omni's primary point is to, I need to kill you now. And Omni X's primary is, I need to screw up your security, but also stop you from killing... Or no, that's not the one that stops you from killing me. That is the I need to kill you faster one. Yeah, essentially they're using their we try and build up to our top end as a pseudo-defensive, using raid as like a way to kill problem children before they become an issue, then going into Black or Gray to hopefully kill off tamers if necessary, and Black or Gray X to lock, not even really lock down the board so much as just set up a situation where we're trashing security, we're hopefully trying to keep stuff mostly controlled and make sure that you need to have at least 2 bodies during the unsuspend phase. Again, doesn't matter too much if they're playing against Royal Knights, but otherwise. And using the BT8 Metal Gray to make sure they can always swing over the Royal Knights and prevent them from getting stuff under King Drazel. Aside from, again, them playing out BT13 Gallant or BT14 Omni, BT13 Omni, because BT13 Omni does also have the unconditional just delete a thing, which, again, reinforces why they're using as many of the Greymon X's as they can to keep stuff alive. And yes, we are still in PPG, which is how you could tell that I think this is the only blue flare that's topped at any of the 3 regionals recently. Run by Hansen Lim. It has 5 eggs. I don't know why that hasn't clicked with me yet, that they have 5 eggs. Huh. I wish I could say, I can't, this is a fairly standard blue flare list, but let's be honest here, blue flare tops nothing, so having a standard blue flare list is not really a thing that exists. But we've got 4 of both of the Gaussmons because it just works for what they need. I mean, one, you just want to die. The other one will trigger both on its own play and will trigger when you play into something else with Digicross. The Dracmon is fine and has blue flare, which is quite frankly the most important thing about it. I do appreciate that they're still running the Starter Deck 1 Greymon for just the Sec Plus, which gets a little silly when they are running EX4 Metal Gray, who cannot use non-blue Greymons, but I don't think that's really stopping them. This list really does seem to be taking advantage of the fact that they finally have more cards named Male Bergermon. Because they're just... It means that they can much more consistently get into their Metal Greymon, and by extension, use it to get into their Decker Greymon, or... Is it Decker Greymon plus Cyber Launcher, or is he also a Metal Greymon? He is a Metal Greymon plus Cyber Launcher. Poor Blue Flare Cyberdramon, you never had a chance. Yeah, I know. They're exactly the same. Arguably, the new EX4 Gaussmon is trying to make you maybe look at Grey Knight support that no one is ever gonna touch because it's all jank, but hey. I do love that we've entered the world where Z Gray has functionally replaced the Metal Gray X, the BT9 red one that was being run very briefly as a way to secure slightly more security checks. And they've just gone, we can just run Zeeg to do the same thing. And Omni to go on top of the Zeeg if we really just need one more frickin' swing. And I adore the Sarai here, both because it stops Royal Knights cold from being able to attack. Well, you obviously can't just stop their Omni turn. You can try and figure out that this is probably going to be the Omni turn, so I can Sarai, or you can hope that there's a Sarai in security to save you from the Omni turn, both of which I feel is perfectly viable. Amusingly, Sarai also stops Marcus's from killing you, or at least swinging, and therefore getting the free evolutions as consistently. It's a blue deck, of course, they're running frickin' Ice Wall. The card is inescapable. One day we will be free of Ice Wall. And Blazing Mem Boost, because it's strictly better than any other Mem Boost, arguably. Dig for... Oh, what? Dig for 6? Is it 6 or 5? I'm pretty sure it's 6. Come here. Yes, dig for 6. Add 1 card with blue flare, or 2 cards with blue flare in their traits, and play a Kiriha, which I will never understand why they decided that Kiriha and Nene would have the special text about being a Kiriha and a Nene. Well, they decided that Henry and Susie would still just be Henry and Susie and not have that distinction. Look, you don't have to hate green. You don't have to hate green. Anyway, this continues to be the one blue deck that I appreciate seeing because I don't know if it's even more fair. I appreciate that it's never been as unpleasant to me personally. So I like seeing it around. I like seeing it around because it's never personally hurt me. Okay, now we can get to the goofy one. Which, of course, this is one of the ones that loaded weird, and I didn't notice at the time. Okay. I hate that I didn't notice at the time that this one went screwy too. Okay. It's a hunter's list. It's like 90% bog standard. Their only weird changes are, 1, they're actually running 4 Drachmons. It's usually 3. So they're just higher on the rookie level than usual. Right. Also, this one is the 7th place list run by Isaac Loeffler. This is also the same person who won PPG's Win-A-Case the day after this regional, also playing, I believe playing Hunters? I don't know if we've actually seen deck lists. Anyway, 1 higher on the rookies than usual because still at the 2 Ikaki, and then 4 Gumdra and 4 Psych because you just kind of have to. But running 4 Drax, so extra rookie, 4, 4, and 4 for the other level 4s. They've cut down to 1 Omni Shout less, so 2 instead of 3, and then the 4 Superior Mode, only 2... Okay. Only 2 Clockmons, which I'm a little surprised by because I find the jamming is much more important in this meta. And then, yes, they have the extra secret spicy tech. The purple Melga Ace, which I want to look up just so I can see the damn thing when I'm reading it. Oh my goodness. I probably could have just typed in Ace, but then I'd get all of the, Metal Guru, or then I'd get all of the stuff from, Blast Ace. So, if you haven't had to play against this card yet, which I mean, there's also a Melga list running around, so you might have. Plays for 6, it's never going to in this deck. Digivolves for 3, never going to do that either. And has the fun new ace mechanic of hand, counter, blast, Digivolve. So at counter timing, which, look, this is going to drive me nuts because I'm a judge and I have to explain it, but bear with me. Counter timing is technically 2 different sets of timing, and I hate it. First of all, it is stuff that used to take place in the reaction step, so anything that is all turns or opponent's turn when your opponent's Digimon attacks or becomes suspended, so stuff like Hydramon, all of the Belphemon effect to end an attack, other Omni X's thing, all of those happen during counter timing, If they are optional and you do the counter effect, they are considered to have been skipped. I'm just saying this right now because I have to. Because using a from-hand counter effect is considered the end of counter timing, then you go to blockers, which is why it's not completely goofy that the starter deck Wargrey has blocker, because you can blast into him and then block with him still. So, this one, Blast Digivolve is to Digivolve for 0. You do still draw a card. When Digivolving, by trashing up to 3 cards from your hand, gain 1 memory for each card trashed. So, the idea being that if you're being careful, you Evo into Superior Mode without suspending, swing with it to pass turn, hopefully not giving your opponent too much memory, get all of your triggers dealt with, hit security once, or twice if you've got Watchmakers on board. And then the opponent tries to swing back at you, you blast Evo into Metal Guru Ace on top of your Restaurant Superior Mode, because that is the only Digimon it can Evo onto in this deck. Trash up to 3 cards from your hand, and voila, you hopefully now have turn after they've punched you. Notably, you very likely want to make sure your Superior Mode is unsuspended, because if they swing into it, that 1 extra K is probably not going to keep you alive, and if it dies, they instantly gain 4 memory. Well, you lose 4 memory, so, just to be clear. But yes, the point of it is to try and maintain, or not maintain, but steal turn back after an opponent attacks. And then it has, when attacking, by trashing 1 card from your hand, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest level. It's fine, that part probably will almost never come up. And I think, frankly, this is probably also why they're running the extra Drachmon, is so that they have a more consistent ability to dig through their deck for this card that cannot be searched by anything else, because it doesn't have save in its text, so you can't search it any of the other ways. And there's a very good chance that something like Mamemon will bottom deck it. I don't know if it's cute tech, but I don't know if I like it more than any of the other tech that the deck could have. But, as a surprise play, it's fucking brilliant. The problem is, the cat's out of the bag now. Which means I don't know if it's ever going to be quite as useful again. That's not to say it's bad, but now you will never be able to get the big surprise anymore. It's not a problem, but it is definitely the... Congratulations, you've changed everything, and now we all get to suffer together, and damn it, the 8th place list is also screwy. Hang on. Because when I notice that they're screwy, it's much easier to fix them before you all see them. Nope. Why is it still exporting screwy? That's bizarre. Give me a second while I try and fix this one. Because it's a shine gray, so I will actually need to look through crap and see where things are supposed to be. July 29th, PPG, right, yes. Save. There we go. Now we do this fun rigmarole again. What did I say? This is 8th place? 8th place, yes. Paste. And, oh, no, what am I doing? I'm losing my mind, that's what. Okay. That's what I'm doing, is losing my damn mind. Especially when it displays the wrong image. Okay, well, it should display right for y'all. There we go. Where... One of these days, I'm going to pin this folder to quick access and then immediately no longer need it on quick access. So this is Michael Lee's Shine list. I can already see from the very beginning that this is a much more aggressive list. Well, maybe not much more, but it is definitely a more aggressive list. Again, going with the 4 of BT13 Agu, I still... The combination of what I find to be a less useful inheritable and no memory gain or card draw just makes me like it less, but I get it. They're going with the red base, so Koro, and in this case, not running yellow Mem Boost. That still makes no sense to me, but hey. Running 2 red Mem Boosts. Yes, this means you might bottom deck Rise Gray, or Shine Gray, I'm just gonna say Ruin Mode. You might bottom deck Ruin Mode, but... oh well. You can still hit Ruin Mode off of Agu X, any of your card draw effects, which again is still why I think EX4 is better because of semi-consistent card draw. BT12 Agu can hit it. That's actually pretty much it. Yeah. Yeah, same move never works twice. And unfortunately, I do think, reflecting back on the Tamers one, or the Hunter deck with the Melga Ace, I think unfortunately it's also just one of those, people are going to try and use it badly. Because they will do stuff like leave their, suspend their superior mode, and then realize after the fact, oh no, they're just gonna swing into my superior mode, so if I blast evolution and 1k is not enough to save it, I might gain 3 memory, but I'm then going to lose 4. Yeah. Besides that, this is actually fairly straightforward. Again, Michael Lee seems to have focused much more aggressively on getting Marcus's out early, so they've gone with 4 of the BT12 Geo Gray and lowered the EX4 Geo Gray to 2. Again, in theory, I like, especially because the DP reduction on the BT12 Geo and Agu is generally more useful than the just pop a 3k or less on the BT13 Agu and Geo, but it's such a painful card in the mid-game because it's when Digivolving Trigger does nothing if you have a Marcus in play. Like, it's much better early game, which, yes, as a 4 of makes it a little bit more optimal, I suppose, but I do kind of appreciate the cute tech of 2 Rise Gray X's and only 2 of BT12 Rise Gray. I'd just be a little concerned that at a certain point you're lowering the critical density of having that inheritable that lets you send Marcuses to security instead of trash. Which feels a little weird given that they're also running 4 of BT12 Shine Gray, who is unquestionably the more aggressive choice. It does really feel like this deck is trying to kill you before you can do anything about it. Their only options are the Red Mem Boost and the single Sunrise Buster, so they don't really have a scary security besides just I hit a 15k. And personally, what I'm looking for out of security is, when I want my security to be good, I'm not looking for just, I want a big body. I need something that lets me kill, ideally, either more things that haven't swung, or, better yet, lets me just remove a problem before it gets to do its thing. So that's part of why personally I like Heaven's Judgment and I like Final Shining Burst, because Heaven's Judgment is out of security, give something -12, and when played, give something -16, usually. And Final Shining Burst is 16, 18. And Final Shining Burst is, in almost all instances, hopefully give something -15 and maybe gain memory. So, I get the Sunrise Buster. I just would like it to be better. I'm a little surprised there were no SecCons, but at the same time, SecCon historically has a significant issue with winning. Because SecCon is great at not losing, but it's not always great at winning. And a lot of the ways that SecCon decks win are the same ways that stuff like Beelstar win, which are then countered by the Solar or actually not Solarmon, but the Psychmons and other Floodgate cards that are stopping some decks from functioning right now. So I think they're just being hit by the same issues that a lot of other decks are dealing with, but they don't have as much of a way to deal with. Up next in 9th, we have our... I cannot believe it took us until 9th to get to a green deck. It hurts my soul. Especially given that I don't like this version of the green deck, but hey. In 9th, we have Ryan Amidon's Bloomlord. I'm not even going to pretend that this is a Rose deck. Big thing, if you haven't seen it yet, is that Kokomon has 100% usurped Gummymon as the egg, and without Mimi as consistently in the deck, Green is back down to running 4 eggs. So we're gonna probably see the weird 4 and 1 a lot less consistently. Personally, I would reverse the ratios on the Pomu, but they're also very in on the Hydra, which I'm not currently in on, so yeah, I get it. 2 of Floodgate Pomu, 4 of both of their Searchers, because frankly, their Searchers are just good. 3 of the EX3 Pomu. Interesting level 4 split while I try and do math in my head. They're at 11 level 4s, okay. 2 Red Veggie because he plays for absolutely nothing and you can Evo for absolutely nothing. 4 Sunflow because, frankly, you can use Sunflow to get another Sunflow? Or to get the other Sunflow and start doing some weird crap. And then the 2 Yakimon because it's just a solid defense piece. It's a little bit too easy to just get it killed, but I think it's a perfectly solid defense piece. They're running the 1 of Argo and the 1 of Blossom. 3 Cherry, which I don't hate, but I'm a little surprised by. 4 Agitar, no Lila. No Lila feels very strange to me. But essentially, they're going for the new Bloomlord plan, which is to get into a... Oh, what's the word? Essentially, your goal is to either get into an Agitar in Raising, push him out, use his effect to play out a BT13 Sunflowmon, and then jump into a Bloomlord for 2 less. Or to go into, push out, go into Sunflow for 2, BT10 Sunflow for 2, self-suspend to put out the... Oh, goodness. BT13 Sunflow. Get annoyed that you probably have to pay for that evolution. But either way, the primary goal is to use BT13 Sunflow to jump someone into a Bloomlord for 2 less, and then regain at least that 2, if not more. My notable issues with this style is that, 1, you're still having to play for Yoshino, because you're not running any copies of Lila. And you're now much more consistently relying on getting into a fairy. You have no fairies at level 5, and only the one fairy at level 6. So I don't think Mimi's better. I just think that this is a weird middle ground, because I think Yoshino is great. The problem is that Yoshino, like the Lilamon, only works if you're more consistently running fairies and vegetation, and especially more fairies at the top end. However, Sunflow, if you don't have any level 5s, or BT13 Sunflow, if you don't have any level 5s that are fairies, is functionally kind of a dead card until you get into having a level 5 on board. Argo doesn't trigger with any of them, and in a lot of cases that play out a rookie isn't the most important thing you could be doing. Yes, it can help you get an extra check with Bloomlord and dig a little bit deeper, but if they're going for this build, I would tend to agree that Mimi is better, but I guess the idea is that, well, I've got Lala, so I should run Yoshino because Lala can hit Yoshino. And the memory gain will come up, and the memory gain on Yoshino does trigger if they're going into anything that isn't Quartz, Argo... Yeah, Quartz or Argo. Everything else will trigger it. My primary issue with this is the same issue that I run into with some of these shines, though, which is that you have nothing in security. So if Royal Knights is going off, you just... It's just, does Royal Knights have how much security do I have checks? Then scoop and go to game 2. I just don't love that as a mechanic. Like, yes, you've got the Cherrymons to try and redirect some of your hits, but that's a delaying tactic, and frankly, you're probably going to be using that Cherrymon to Evo up. I think if you're going for Yoshino, there's no reason then to not also be running stuff like... No, I know Bloom does eat Royal Knights alive until Royal Knights goes off. Like, believe me, part of the reason we're doing PPG first is so I can also talk about all of the information that we have on it. I don't like this version. And maybe that's mostly just because I want to run Rosemon, and personally, I find Rosemon to be better than Quartzmon. Or I find Rosemon Burst Mode to be better than Quartzmon. But that is very much my personal preference as opposed to what is actually true. And... Is this one screwy? No, looks... Huh! I did not notice that. In 10th, we've got another Royal Knight. It's been a minute since we got to one of these. This is gonna get... strange. Because this one's a little different than I was expecting. This is... I'm gonna screw your name up, and I'm very sorry about this. Prajith Subramaniam? One, there are no Sistermon Blancs. Who... Yes, Sistermon CL kind of does a similar... Like, fills a very similar niche, but Sistermon CL costs one more. But I guess she puts more stuff into trash so that your alpha can interact with it more consistently, but they're not running the Jesmon GX or the Saiken Mappa that can also interact with trash. So I'm deeply perplexed. They've... Oh, because they're... Okay, it just clicked. They're in on the Magna plan. There's an argument that Magnamon is the best turn 1 opener for Royal Knights because you play him for 5, which... Or not 5, for 2, because cost reduction of 5, and then you'll draw 1 next turn. The argument being, it's the best memory screw, but it's also a waste of a blocker in a lot of cases, and it's a temporary body as opposed to if your turn 1 play is Blanc, yeah, you're giving them 1 extra, but you're drawing 2 cards instead of just 1, and you have a body that will stick around. So you can actually start making some little bits of tick damage. The argument, obviously, the opposite side of the argument being, yeah, but this way I can get another source under King Drazel and start reducing costs by more. It's a balancing act, whichever one you're more for. I'm surprised to see no Blancs, is all I mean, because CL just does not seem as innately useful as Blanc. The jamming does not come up very often. Or not jamming, reboot. Reboot, she's not Prince Mamamon. The reboot doesn't seem to come up all that often, except for the turn you Omni, and if you're needing the reboot after you Omni, something has probably gone wrong. And on the opposite side of that, yes, the decoy very rarely comes up because there aren't that many attempts to delete your Royal Knights that would actually be decoyable or worth decoying, but still. As for the rest of the Royal Knights numbers, this is much closer to normal. Again, still 3 of the Jesmon. I wonder if the 3 Jesmon is because they're expecting to deal, or they're trying to deal with Bloom and all of its little bodies that they just want to shred. This one's back up to 3 BT13 Gallant, but no BT12 Gallant. 3 Ganku, 2 Ulforce, which I still think is generally pretty good tech against all of the different Greymon decks that are running around, because so many of them have protection based on their existing sources. Oh, and then the weird one that I have to go read that I'm, again, continuing to be surprised they're not running the Jesmon GX second Mappa tech for it, because he kind of works really well with it. It's Kentarosmon. Okay. So, Kentarosmon, on play, if the total cards in both players' security stacks is 6 or less, gain 3 memory. Then, reveal 1 card from your hand. If you revealed a yellow card, place it on top of your security stack face down. If not, return it to your hand. Generally, the idea being, you put a Marcus there. Worst case, I guess you put a Magna there, but the hope is you put a Marcus there. And regain the 3 memory. Again, it's fine on play. I don't know if it's necessarily great. The cute tech that I've seen with it is that because it's a Royal Knight from this set, the on play is the same as it's when digivolving. So you can use it with Seiken Mappa to trigger the digivolve and then immediately recoup the cost of Seiken Mappa. But that's pretty much about it, because it's when attacking is kind of terrible by trashing the top card of your security stack, unsuspend this Digimon, and one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 7,000 DP for the turn. Technically, you can use it to kill a blocker before they declare themselves as a blocker, and yes, it unsuspends, but you can also use Examon to do the same thing, and most people are, so it's a choice. Then the 2... Oh, goodness, what the hell is your name? Leopardmon. Hey, just a reminder, because this has also come up a couple of times and I've had to answer it as a judge question. The way that Leopardmon's main / when digivolving effect works is that you activate it and that effect plays a Digimon. No, you cannot use 2 Leopardmons to reduce the play cost of something twice. What you can do... Hang on. You can't do that because part of the effect that plays the Digimon from Leopardmon is the cost reduction. Because Leopardmon's effect specifically reads... I need to go make sure that I have it in front of me so I can read it off word for word. When digivolving, main, once per turn, you may play 1 Digimon card with Royal Knights, with the Royal Knights trait, or 1 green Digimon card from your hand for its play cost. When played by this effect, reduce the cost by 4. So 1, yes, Psychmon still stops things from being played by Leopardmon because they are being played by an effect. 2, you still have to pay the full cost, then you get the cost reduction because of Leopardmon playing it by his own effect. King Drazel can also reduce it, But you cannot use 2 Leopardmons to reduce the cost. You can use 2 Leopardmons to play 2 different cards with reduced costs, but not 2 Leopardmons working together. Got it? Got it. Okay. I do like that this is back to the new Craniamon. I think it's just better than old Craniamon. Yes, the argument for old Craniamon is that he can protect your Digimon that Leopardmon has given blocker to, but that's really it. They're also running 3 Lord Knights, probably because they're also running 4 Sistermon CLs, so they're throwing a lot more pieces in trash when they search and inevitably go, I want more of this than I'm allowed to take, so need more ways to dig it back out. At the same time, that also means they're running more Lord Knightmons, who's just not the most useful, because her opponent's turn effect is really just I need to not lose on the crackback after the Omni turn. But it's intriguing. And hang on, I think I have a teammate who is now literally ready to come join, except that... Okay, no, good. Except that the next deck list is run by my fucking teammate, so... Which is why this one is all blinged out, because I know which cards he has blinged out and which he doesn't. So yes, this is the 11th place list run by Chris Caseman. So, 1, yes, I did it like this because I know that he has everything alt-arted except for 1 Dynasmon. And I want it there to make fun of him for it. So yes, 3 Sistermon Blancs because, like I said, you dig for 2, yes, you throw something in trash. The decoy apparently came up for him literally once ever, but it came up. But frankly, she's a body, she sticks around. You can also swing... you can also use her to swing later, and frankly, she never fucking dies. Like, 3k is an easy amount to... easy DP to kill, but that Sistermon Blanc does not die very often, from my experience playing against Chris. Same thing with the 3 Magnas. He doesn't love them, I know personally. But they're just too good, both as an early game play, if you don't have the Sistermon Blanc or CL or Omeka. Actually, that just made me think. Did the previous... Okay, yes, the previous one did, like I said, the previous one had Porcupa. I'm not even noticing Porcupa anymore because it's just most folks are running 2 Porcupas. He is a big defender of the 4 Omeka, and I generally stand with him on this. It's just... Frankly, it's a level 4, which is a weird level, because a lot of things bounce... level 3s, a lot of purple stuff kills level 3s, and you have to go to slightly higher, more expensive things to kill level 4s. Very few things bounce them. There are obviously some, but very few. And 4k is one of those, this is just a slightly annoying number, because Shine has a bunch of things that'll eat a 3k or less, and they've got a bunch of things that will give minus 2k, or minus 3k, but won't necessarily give quite enough to kill it, so they have to commit 2 different triggers to killing an Omeka. And no one wants to kill Omeka, because they all know that if you kill Omeka, there's a very good chance that a Royal Knight is going to now show up under King Drazel and be very annoying. Yeah, it's just this very slightly annoying card to remove. By the way, I should say, I didn't include pre-release stamps, because they are very difficult to read on an image like this, but yes, he also has everything that has a pre-release stamped. But yes, he is missing 1 Dynasmon, and I'm going to make sure that everyone knows it. And sorry, I have a decklist profile for this with him. Like, I interviewed him immediately after the event. I will have it up before Gen Con. That's all I can say for sure, is I will have it up before Gen Con. He's not a huge fan of the Sistermon CL, but it's one of those... It does what I need, and absolute worst case, on the Omni turn, if I can't win, or if I'm worried that I might not be able to win, I can grab her out of trash with the Genku on play, so that she'll be another thing that has rush. And if we don't kill, we've got reboot, so it's good. I can never remember what each Gallant does, so hang on. Because he is a huge proponent of the BT12 Gallant, and I constantly just cannot remember exactly what the hell this damn thing does. Oh, right, because it's the when attacking. Yes. So it's... The raid very rarely came up for him, from my understanding, but the when attacking was huge. When attacking, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 6k or less. If no opponent's Digimon was deleted by this effect, trash the top card of your opponent's security. Especially while the Shine Mirror generally quite favors, or Shine Mirror, while the Shine game generally quite favors Royal Knights, it's another way to make sure that they are not getting that Marcus that they just put on top of security. Especially since most of the Shine decks right now are leaning more heavily into the aggro build, so they're not using BT13 Shine to turn BT13 Marcus into a blocker so that they can get Suspend, give a whole bunch of DP minus, and then gain memory. They're mostly running the BT12 Shine for Marcuses hit harder and are safer to swing with. Actually, now that I think about it, there was one note he had, which is that apparently a lot of Shine players don't swing with burst mode. On the turn that they, like, if they burst mode, get a bunch of checks, they don't swing with the 15k burst mode. So he would use Raid Gallant as a way to remove the Shine. Because it was just a, nope, you're going away now. Since it's usually the biggest body they have on board. I believe, let's see, he didn't love Jesmon, but was mostly just this Jesmon, it does work, and a lot of the time the DP increase is important, more so than the deletion, but the deletion effect definitely came up a time or two. Gallant is still one of your remarkably solid, either, oh god, I need a finisher, or this is reduced cost twice because I have King Drazel and there's a bunch of crap in both of our trashes, so I'm gonna play it for less and still be able to play something else. And plus then you get it under King Drazel, can then get it out later with an Omni, so... Genku, he defended to high heaven because the play out another Royal Knight is absurdly useful, and the play out a Sistermon on Omni turn is surprisingly useful. I believe he's the only one we've seen so far that was running 3 Ulforces, which was very much key for all of the Greymons, because it's the... If you play out something, then... like, if you play out Genku and then go into Ulforce, or if you play out Leopard and use his effect to go into Ulforce, it lets you strip enough sources that most Greymons lose their protection effects, either because they've lost the... oh my goodness. The Wargrey that actually protects them from being... not Wargrey. Either because they've lost the Greymon ex-antes that give them the protection, or because they've lost the having the same level sources that gave them the ability to activate their protections. So the Ulforce saved him in a lot of cases. It obviously still doesn't kill something that has ex-ante sources, because you can't bounce it then, since they have to have no sources, but it still came in quite clutch. Then 3 Leopard for pretty much the exact same reason. 3 of the Alpha because it just shuts down a lot of the decks killing you. I know I asked him if he ever used the all turns effect to prevent it from being absorbed by King Drazel, just to have another body that could technically swing, and I think it came up once at like a locals, and that was it. He's never generally it's just there for the nope. It's a delay thing, and it's good because he had a tie against, I want to say Alphamon. I believe it was Alphamon, because if you haven't seen the Royal Knights versus Alphamon games, they're a trip and usually involve basically just both players trying to not lose by using Alphamon to stall out, while the Alphamon player is using Alphamon to not get murdered and then try and get into Oryukin to maybe stop themselves from decking out, usually. I know Chris was briefly on Old Crania, but saw Wisdom, which is what I'm going to call it, and swapped over to the new Crania and very much liked it. The on-play protection saves a lot of stuff at turn, saves from a lot of stuff. Fun fact, it also stops, let me make sure before I say this out loud, because I think it does, but I also want to make sure that this works the way that I think it does. Yeah. This did not come up because, frankly, very few people are playing the deck, but yeah. Craniumon, technically, can ignore Sleepy Boy trying to make him not punch you. It's very niche. I don't think it ever came up because there are not that many people running Belphamon, but it is a thing. Same thing, too, with the Dynasmon. Chris is a big proponent of just it's the best searcher in the entire deck. As a turn 1 opener, oh no, I gave the opponent 5. I also took 2, have 2 new things in trash, and it's going to be a source under King Drazel. I don't care. It's also very good out of Royal Knights of the Purge, because you can jump him out, then play something else, because Dynas is one of the few cards that doesn't react to his own play, but does react to other Digimon being played to pop, I believe is it level 4 or lower, or is it level 4? Which, again, is important for the Bloom Lord match. Yeah, level 4 or lower. So chews up a lot of stuff pretty effectively. And then the one Lord Knight, and I think, now that I'm looking at it, is he the only person who is running EX4, or EX3 Examon? I believe so. So far, yes. I'm gonna try and explain this again, because the difference hurts my brain slightly. So BT13 Examon has the on-play to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. It doesn't unsuspend during their next unsuspend phase. Just during their unsuspend phase, notably if you use that on something that then goes into a Bloom Lord, yes, it can unsuspend then. And then it has all turns, once per turn. When an opponent's Digimon becomes suspended, you may activate one of the below effects, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, or unsuspend this Digimon. So, functionally, suspend something, then either suspend something else, or unsuspend something. Other Examon, EX3, has a when devolving that will never come into play, although I guess technically you can DNA it with Ulforce and Leopard. While this Digimon... all turns once per turn. When this Digimon becomes suspended, unsuspend it, and suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. So, essentially, it's especially on Omni turn, swing, immediately unsuspend, tap something down before it can become a blocker. The problem, or the distinction then between that and BT13 is that it does its suspension at the beginning. You need to have something to unsuspend or something of your opponent's to suspend. It's just less than ideal, because it reacts to other things suspending as opposed to itself suspending. So you have less direct control over BT13 as opposed to EX4. And then the Omnimon Marcus and Royal Knights of the Purge are just... They're in every deck. I don't know what you want from me at this point. Oh, right! The secret Dark Horse. I love this. I love this, and we'll also point out that, it's not Mirage Gauga. Yay. It's not Mirage Gauga. The first blue deck we have seen... No, second, right? Blue Flare. The second blue deck in this top 16 from PPG is Austin Harvey's All Force deck. Because All Force... Okay. One, I continue to appreciate All Force adapting to Lanamon. I think she's actually really good tech for the deck. It should also be noted that this is the... that Austin Harvey is running the Leomon Jerry package. The level 4s in this deck are a little weird just because this is a odd spot where they bounce around. The level 3s are pretty locked in at the basically just these 3 VMons. I think actually BT12 VMon sees a little bit of play, but I need to remember what his... I know his inheritable doesn't matter, but I believe his search is not garbage? No, it actually doesn't work because it needs free in its trait. So yeah, never mind. The rookies are pretty locked in at just like, we're running these 3 at 4-ofs. Only the one... I didn't actually notice there was only the one Vidramon. And then everything else is other rookies. Or other level 4s. Interesting. I know it did horribly. We'll get to it. I played against 2 Mirages in the Winnacase, and only after I started doing really badly. Again, I do like the Leomon Jerry package. I wish it saw... I wish it was as consistent, I guess. If you have not seen the way this deck works, basically it just tries to build up into usually either an Arrow... Well, one of its 2 level 5s, Arrow Vidramon or Arrow Vidramon, usually in raising, but not always. They'll then push out and either swing with the starter deck Arrow Vidramon with jamming, or do the suspension effect on BT12 Arrow Vidramon to search. They then use that to go into either All Force, though usually, you can tell because of the ratio of 4 to 1, BT12 would be the... BT11 would be the priority. And then just start comboing off by playing out Tamers, which causes a whole litany of frickin' things to happen, not the least of which being that All Force unsuspends, does a bounce effect based on how many Tamers you have, and usually gains 3 or 4 memory, and then starts swinging upon suspending, using its own effect to then continue triggering and trying to play out yet more Tamers to combo off. In the early game, it tends to try and Evo and Raising play out some of their Tamers like V-Tamer tie, or if they have to, Jerry, just so that they can cheat out Leomons. I am a little surprised to see that they're only running new Rena. They are not running old Rena, because old Rena in this case seems to have been hard substituted for Sora and Joe, which I will point out is very, very hilarious tech against Royal Knights, because Sora and Joe give you an extra 2 memory at the start of turn. Actually, it might be start of main phase. Start of your turn, yes. If your opponent has Digimon with no Digivolution cards in play, gain 2 memory, and then your turn, when you attack with a blue Digimon, you may suspend this Tamer to trash 2 Digivolution cards from the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon. Hey, fun notable fact, that triggers at the same time as your memory setter. So yes, if you do your triggers wrong, you can burn the memory setter trigger. Yes, really. Both Sora and Joe and Davis, as a memory setter, trigger at start of turn. Davis goes, do you have less than 3 memory? If it's your turn, by default, you have 1. And goes, cool. If so, I set you to 3. But if you do Sora and Joe first, then they go, we bring you to 3. And then Davis goes, you're at 3. I don't know what you want from me, idiot. And yes, I am 100% going to... I 100% watch out for this crap, because sometimes people will do that where they go, like, okay, Sora and Joe take me to, give me +2. And it's like, cool, you didn't go with Davis first, so... It is a very important distinction. Mostly because, look, if Hunters players have to learn how effect sequencing works, which they do, if I get judge called again for someone trying to draw off Amonimon after saving, I will tear my hair out. So do all Force players, or blue players in general. Anyway, I'm just glad to see this, even if I would love to see a blue deck one day that doesn't need to run Ice Wall. Can we dream of that world, please? Please? I'm so tired of Ice Wall. Okay, we've also got I think this is the only Alphamon. I'm going to say that, and there's going to be another one. In 13th, run by Luke Stevens. Look, Alphamon is kind of in an interesting place now, where back in BT7, they only won because Sunarizamon let them get extra security checks. And now they're in an interesting place where they still run Sunarizamon because they fucking have to. And I don't hate it. I'm a little surprised to see their balance of Darugamons? And there are no Ryutamons, actually. Because... Sorry, the more I look at this, the more I get confused. Okay. Huh. That sound you hear is my brain grinding gears. So they have no Ryutamons, which means they cannot search for their tamer. They're running for Dory, who is unequivocally the better of the two, well, the original 2 rookies. But don't have Coda, so they can't, so that's a search that they might whiff. No Coda is very brave. They also only have 10 rookies. Holy crap. Okay. Essentially, it looks like they're trying to rely on 2 major pieces here. One, that Cool Boy, for some unspeakable reason, only costs 2, and his search effect hits every single Digimon and 1 option that are in this deck, and that he turns all of their evolutions. He doesn't need to do same level evolution, does he? Because that's a Yuya thing. No, it is same level. Okay. But they're relying on his memory gain and card draw to make up for the fact that they have very few rookies and are going in a very different direction. So essentially, their game plan is almost assuredly going to be to Sunariza in Raising, because you kind of have to, and then go into either of the Darugamons in Raising, because Yuji triggers... Oh, it's not start of main phase. Yuji's trigger timing is slightly weird, because I think it's a... So it's your turn. Yeah, okay. It's slightly goofy trigger timing. Yuji, for your turn, when one of your Digimon with X antibody in its traits is moved from the breeding area to the battle area, gain 1 memory and draw 1. So essentially, their hope is to just use Yuji to get enough memory to make sure that they can go into their dex lines to then trigger Cool Boys to gain even more memory and yet more card draw. Because functionally, yeah, functionally, it looks like their hope is essentially to do Yuji... Yeah, okay, hang on. I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. Like, they want Tsuneriza in raising to go into a Daruga for 2, then probably play a Yuji. They definitely want to go second. Play a Yuji turn 1 to pass turn. Then even if they're set to 1, they can push out, gain 1 from Yuji, go to 2, draw 1. They can then play Cool Boy, search, go into Dexteruga for 1... No, 0. Go into Dexteruga for 0, gain 2 memory back, draw 2 cards, enabling them to go into Doru Gray for 3, and do either of the Doru Gray effects to hopefully put a Dorimon under to gain at least 1 back. What I'm saying here is it's the Alphamon deck. It gains so much memory off of its tamers that Luke Stevens here seems to have decided that they don't need codas for the memory setting. They just want card draw and memory, and think that card draw and memory gain will be enough to get them off the ground. That reminds me, does this Doru Gray have DP reduction protection? Because I know the limited one does. Yes. If a card is added by its effect, it gains DP reduction protection. Okay. Interesting. It is a little odd that we've come full circle back to the alpha that was so good that it made the deck busted, or helped make the deck busted, is no longer the needed alpha because they've just gone all in on new alpha. Like, yes, you've got the one that'll digivolve and do, grab something from trash, throw it under, do a D-digivolve. But now they also have the just stop things from punching me option. Sure, it's 4 instead of 3, but it very much does not look like they care. Notably, we're also back in the weird world where they're running Final Zubagon Punch. The first time that X-Antibody ever did anything was a BT7 regional that was won by... Actually, I don't remember if it was a win, but top 8 list using, again, BT7, so we didn't even have the Ryudamon line. So they were using the Tsunerizamon, and their top end was Dorugoramon, the dragon that you never see in this list, and BT6 Alphamon. And they used Final Zubagon Punch 9 times out of 10 just to make their Dorugora big enough to swing for a bunch of checks and then unsuspend and have a blocker. Part of the need for Final Zubagon is mostly just that without running any of the Ryudamon line, they don't have reboot or blocker natively. So in a lot of cases, it's mostly just there as another way to punch harder, but they can do it on Alphamon or you can swing, get all of their checks in, then do the one unsuspend with Oriumon, and get the memory back. So essentially it's just a keep swinging until we've decided we're done, and then we can restand and make sure that we have at least one very large blocker who probably can't be murdered. I continue to feel like Kongyu is a little weird, because its primary use right now is to stop Marcus's from going to security, but it also stops Marcus from swinging, which is the primary time that Marcus would be able to get into security, so... And it doesn't stop Marcus from swinging into Digimon, who will kill him, so I guess it's an incentive to not let him do that. That's all I can really think of. I'm frankly, the most surprising part of this to me is just the single X-Ante, because notably, X-Ante is really good tech in Alpha, since everything aside from Sunarizumon has the X-Antibody, so you can evolve into whatever you need, provided, obviously, it's a legal evolution. The no coda will continue to throw me off. Like, not even just a single coda is not a bad choice, but it's a choice. Okay, we've got another Shine list in 14th, run by Jackson Trong? Once again, red base. I still don't like Agu X, but I continue to understand why people are running it. I can't say I'm tempted to do it myself, but I get why people are running it. The Koro for card draw, Agu X. Again, same ratio with the 4 and 2 for BT13 and EX4 Agu. Honestly, here is pretty much just like the stand. Actually, this is almost identical to a list we already looked at. Whose was it? Basically, up until the level 6s, this is the same as... yeah, up until the level 6s, this is... Where did it go? No, it's not quite the same. It's like a midpoint between two of the lists we've already looked at. Because they're at 4 of the new Rise, 2 of old Rise, and 2 of X-Ante. But they're at the very mid-range for their Geograys with 4, 3, and 3. Then we have the weirdness. 1, no Ruin modes, which I can't say I dislike. However, Ruin mode is really good in the mirror. Ruin mode is really good in the mirror, so that's the one notable issue that I expect that they might have run into. And there are so many mirrors right now. This is also just a lot of level 6s. So they have 3 and 3 of both Shines. The BT13 Shine I do get, because it makes your BT13 Marcus into a much more viable defensive option, because you can deal with a lot of scary crap now. You can use him as a blocker, block something, give functionally minus 9k that you can split up into 2 blocks of minus 3 and minus 6 wherever you need to, and still get him killed to hopefully throw him to the top of security. I get it, but it also feels like they are wanting to rush down given the number of burst modes they have. And with my own personal experience, I'm just looking at this going, how often are you having to hard play a Geo or a Rise or a Shine? Because six level 6s just feels like a lot on top of 3 level 7s. And their options are pretty light because of that, so the 2 Red Mem Boost and the 1 Sunrise Buster. I continue to get why with the Sunrise Buster, I just... not 100% sure. Oh, right, the weird one! I forgot about this. Forgot about this one. Sometimes when you tell hunters that they have a flex spot and they just decide, okay, but what if I actually do some weird crap? Speaking as the Hunters player who does weird crap. This is run by Ian Peterson. So, 1, 12 rookies. They cut Nikaki from the normal list. So, 3 Drac, 4 of the basic 2, and then 1 Ikaki. 4 Shoutmon King version, because they really... I mean, obviously, this is a Hunter's list. They need to get the damn... sorry, some of this tech is just breaking my brain a little bit. They need to get their tamers out. Same thing with Dame, even though I freaking hate Damemon so much. The one of Tuarmon continues to be, I wish you were better. Like, he's done good stuff, but I just wish he was better. 4 Arestra, because you have to. 2 Clockmon. 2 Omni Shout, and 1 that I have to go read, because what the hell? Is this Sego? I think this is Sego. Yes. This is Sagomon, who I believe has the same effect as... I think this has the same effect as, Gokumon? Yeah. Okay. So, 1, can Digivolve onto a level 4 with save in its text. 2, when you would play this card from your hand, if your opponent has a Digimon with security check in play, reduce the play cost by 3. That means that if they have a security buff or a security minus, you can play it for less. Sure. Inherited effect, when attacking once per turn, until the end of your opponent's turn, one of your opponent's Digimon gets security attack -1. Okay, I get it, but also why? It's just so niche and janky, and why? Yes, Chohakai, Sego, and Gokumon are all references to Journey to the West. Yeah, this one hurts my brain. Mostly because the only way to get the security change for yourself, like, consistently, is with its when attacking trigger, so you have to rely on them having security buffs, because they're not going to have security minuses, because it's only opponent's Digimon. But I guess, in this case, he's also kind of a weird flex spot, because you can evolve him onto Clockmon in the same way that you can Omni Shout if you have to. It's not ideal, but you can. And then the one Astamon, who's here because he lets you jump into Quartz for much less, or play out something from sources, which, sure. Yeah, So, I feel like they're probably running into one of the primary issues that I run into with hunters, which is that they're also running a really cute array of tamers. Namely, they're running BT10 Uemano, who is actually quite good, and as a one-of, I think is one of the best pieces of tech you can run in a hunter's deck, period. If you've not read BT10 Uemano, he is a very long card, and you will never need to interact with the second effect. The important part is that his all turns effect, once per turn, when a purple Digimon is placed under him, gain a memory and draw a card. They do not need to be saved directly. So, what you can do is just go, cool, I swung with my King Shoutmon. And then it dies, I do the Monimon trigger to draw 1, then save King Shout, and then King Shout looks at all of the stuff in your trash with save, and you can grab anything you want and put it under any tamer you want. So you grab Gumdra, Psyche, Arestra, Astra, or Asta, or Arestramon Superior, and throw it under Uemano, and gain a memory and draw a card. Because none of the Hunter's Tamers who reduce evolution cost need to pull the cards that they use from under themselves. They just need you to have it under a tamer. Similarly, this turns your opponent having to kill your stuff into a very good trick. The first effect. The second effect you will never get, because the second effect requires that your Digimon be Bagra. Because that's an all turns effect, and once per turn, that means if they ever kill a level 4, you are almost always going, cool, I'm adding 1 cost to anything you do. and I'm drawing a card off of it. Because one of Hunter's primary issues is generally a lack of card draw. Until they start going off. Because all of the purple Digimon have the same inheritable that lets them draw cards for attacking, but until that happens, they can have a bit of a slow start, and they can have their hand too packed with tamers to do anything immediately useful until they can really start going off. So it's very important that they have more ways to draw cards. And the problem with Uemano is the same problem with Ryoma that they're also running, who I think is amazing in this deck too. But the problem is they're both purple, which means there are now 3 different tamers that this deck wants and likes having in play who are all purple. Which matters because Arrestramon Superior Mode moves Digimon based on how many colors of tamers you have. Arrestramon Superior Mode's base effect is to move a Digimon under a tamer or your opponent, or a Digimon your opponent controls that is level 3, and that level increases by 1 for each color of tamer you have. So if you've ended up in the very annoying situation where you have Uemano, BT10 Uemano, Tagaru, and Ryoma in play, you have 3 tamers, but you can only move a level 4. It's annoying, and that's the primary issue that you run into with it. Given Royal Knights is one of the big things right now, I don't think it's as much of an issue. You also get some weirdness too now with you don't want to throw things under tamers against Shine, because Shine will go, cool, I still get the inheritable then? When I'm a Digimon and a tamer and suspend and cause my own inheritables to trigger. Oh god. Yeah. And if you haven't read Ryoma, she's also quite good. Start of your main phase. So all of the Hunter Tamers do the start of your main phase, except for Tagaru, who's your memory setter. You can throw something under them usually from your hand to gain some kind of benefit. Taiki draws you a card. Uemano gains you a memory. Rem gives something plus 2k, and Airu gives something minus 2k. Ryoma is kind of unique, because if she does not have 2 or more sources, she just grabs something out of trash. So she's one of your primary ways of recurring, especially your level 5s, which I find to be more useful if you're running overflowing power, but without it, it's still not bad. And it's a way to, say, grab back a Quartzmon, so that you can use Asta to go into Quartzmon, which is, frankly, their real purpose, but still. It's a cute deck. I can see they're definitely trying to do a lot of different tech pieces, though, which might be the key problem. And then our final list, which is a Bloom Lord. This is a little bit more of a less traditional Bloom Lord-ish. Because, one, they're running 5 eggs without Mimi, which, if you're going to run 5 eggs, just run Mimi. Nah. They are doing they're doing a split on their floodgates, because they're running the one of Terrier, which the problem with Terrier is that while Pomu can be a little bit of a non-bow, it's at least still a vegetation, so stuff like Bloom Lord and Hydra still can interact with it properly. Terrier is a mammal? I think he's a mammal. So it doesn't work quite as well. But then 4 and 4 for both of the Searchers, 2 for the Suspend Pomu. This one is not running any... Oh, they are very, very focused on the kill. Also, sorry, this is run by Brendan Ooh? This deck is very focused on the kill because they have no Yakimons, no Cherrymons. They are all in on Sunflow and cheap and one-cost evolutions. The one of Argo, one of Blossom, 4 Agitar, and 3 Lila is a choice. I do like this theoretically as an idea, because it means you can do the theoretical play that I was mentioning before, where you can do push out of raising with ideally Lila as your source. Go into Sunflow for 2, self-suspend Sunflow, play out BT13 Sunflow, activate Sunflow, BT13 Sunflow's effect to go into Lila for 1 on the BT10 Sunflow, play out a Yoshino, then go into Bloom Lord for 4, but you get, 3, because you have the Lila inheritable to reduce cost now that you have a green tamer. You have the Yoshino to also gain 1, so you maintain turn even though you evoed for 3. Gain 2 off of the Bloom Lord, unsuspend, swing, and now you've also got an additional security check from Lila is for your own suspended, right? I might have that wrong. I think Lila's inheritable is either... No, it's while your opponent has a suspended Digimon. She gets an additional security check. Honestly, I think the biggest thing here is that is a lot of Quartzmons. 3 just feels like a lot. And the 1 Grand Del Sol, which... I just like the 1 Grand Del Sol because in a lot of cases it's the... I need to not lose. Because an option out of security is always better than a big body in security. Because a big body in security kills one thing that is already swung. An option in security has a better chance of stopping you from dying. So. And voila! We're done! That was it! The first regional. There's still 2 more, but we're done with the first one, technically, because before we cut away, I have one other thing that I want to talk about. We have, where is it? Hang on. Close this. Because we have this absolutely wonderful... You absolute monster. I did this to myself. I changed the directory without thinking about it before the stream started. No, add all of them, you pest. Like I said, did this to myself. There we go. Now it should work. There we go. Hi, Cat. We have these wonderful infographic breakdowns done by Jeffinetly Jeff. I think they're a level 1 judge. You can follow them on Twitter. They've been putting these out since, I want to say BT11. It was probably BT12. It was BT12 because it was after the Black or Gray hit. So essentially, they get all of the deck list information from TOs, and it's a little bit more straightforward with PPG since they make people say what their deck is, at least to an extent. So we have these delightful graphic breakdowns of how games against different archetypes are actually going. We only have win rates if there are at least 5 matchups between a given 2 decks. So percentage is obviously win percentage. Left side are the winners. Top are what they're playing against. Why, Cat? Yeah, I know, you're a grump. The number in the top right corner is the number of times that we have records of the decks playing against each other. And then, obviously, win percentage for the deck on the left. This first slide is all of the quote-unquote most popular decks, which is to say that there were 414 players. I believe these decks each had... Let's see. Shine Gray had... God, that is a blinding light. Shine Gray had 79 players. Greymon All, which, yes, that's going to get a little confusing, don't worry, had 59 players. Mirage Gauga had 34. Royal Knights had 27. Blue Flare had 21. Greymon, it's referred to as both Toolbox and Pile in different places, had 20 players. Bloom Lord had 19, and Belfa had 17. You'll note that Mirage never made it to a top table. So, because Shine is the most freaking ubiquitous deck, we do have the most data on it, meaning that we can see that it generally has a very favorable matchup against almost everything except for Royal Knights. Note that Greymon is a weird one because, as I said, there are about 40 different versions of this Greymon deck that if you played Magic during Khans of Tarkir, it's basically, oh shoot, what was that stupid rhino in the green, white, black? What was the clan? No, not Thragtusk, it was the other one. Siege Rhino. It was what the hell was the name of that clan though? But it was the Siege Rhino thing where there were like 8 different decks that Abzan. Yes, there were like 8 different Abzan decks, but the difference between them was basically like 2 cards. And that's where we're at with Greymon right now, is it pretty much only changes at the top end, because they're either running Wargrey X, they're running Black Wargrey, a lot of them are running Black Wargreymon X no matter what, but they're also running stuff like Gaio. Yeah. It depends. The fact that there are technically like 3 to 5 different Wargrey archetypes right now makes everything very screwy. But Shine Grey does generally have a positive win rate against most things aside from Royal Knights, because it has a very weird time with Royal Knights. Otherwise, it's just kind of a very slightly positive win rate. The Greymon decks are slightly worse. Mostly because the confusion of Greymon All does really well against Greymon Toolbox. Figure out what the hell that means. And Greymon decks notably have generally better card draw than a lot of other decks, which, weirdly enough, yes, their better card draw makes them play worse against Mirage Gauga, though I will point out that, as you can see, Mirage Gauga has not great win rates in general. Which makes the fact that I lose to it just much clearer that it's just because I hate blue. But as I pointed out, Mirage Gauga does have a very good game against Belphemon, because the two are fundamentally directly opposed to each other. Royal Knights generally has an overall positive game, less so again against Belphemon, because Belphemon kind of hard counters a lot of the stuff that they're doing by getting to just shrug off effects and then make a huge body swing into security for 2 checks every turn, and then usually return to shrug off a bunch of effects and get free kills on Royal Knights. I'm a little surprised that we have so few matchups between Blue Flare and Greymon Toolbox, but I've also, this is just going to keep reiterating the fact that apparently I am physically incapable of playing against blue, because I was a Bloom Lord girl for basically BT10 through... I don't even know exactly when I stopped necessarily. I still have it. I love it, although I'm playing Rosemon more, but fight me. But the Bloom Lord matchup, for the Blue Flare matchup always felt much more difficult to me than that, but okay. Apparently I'm supposed to be winning much more consistently. Folks who self-identified as Greymon Toolbox apparently were not having a good time, though. Like, they... Admittedly, I think we just said there were only... There were only 20 of them. But they did not seem to be having a great time. Notably, the highest placing Greymon Toolbox player took 47th. Meanwhile, Greymon in general is... took... highest placed, obviously, was 5th, so... It's just mostly that I could never draw into the stuff that I needed. But I have a very well-established mental block against playing well against blue. It's just a thing. And then Belphemon, there were so few Belphemons. We don't even have... We can't even have the nice clear 50-50 against Belphemon because there weren't 5 matches between Belphemons. However, as I said, Belpha does have a really bad match against Mirage Gauga because Belpha needs to stay below 6 cards in hand, and Mirage Gauga fills your hand no matter what the hell you want it to do. And has a weird game against, looks like Blue Flare, which I can see it. They generally only have one body that's doing a lot of stuff, and because Digimon doesn't prevent effects from targeting, just they apply and don't do anything, Blue Flare is pretty consistently able to shut down Belpha from swinging with their rage mode because the protection doesn't stop the you can't attack or block from attaching to the sleep mode. The protection just makes it not do anything, so when it passes turn and the sleep mode falls off and it turns into rage mode, it still can't attack because it has that lingering effect attached to it. So, weird matchup there. So, maybe be a little wary about that, Belpha players. Though I have to say, I'm so happy that Belphemon, once again, a deck that is built 90% from cards from the most recent set, is legitimately competitive. Because this is the same thing that I've said about Hunters and Cross, is that I just absolutely adore when we have decks that function from a given set, and maybe they need little pieces from other places, but when the deck itself is just, if you pick up this set, you will probably be able to build this deck, and that's okay. And it's gonna be a competitive deck, and you don't need to go find tamers from like 2 years ago that are annoyingly expensive just because of this specific deck existing. It just makes me so happy. On the next page, we also have a much more significant breakdown with, this is all of the, I believe this is all of the games with the, what is it? Is this everyone? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Is Millith the last? No, okay. This is every deck that had more than 5 players except for Ulforce. Because no, it's not. This is almost every deck that had more than 5 players. I will send everyone a link to it. You can actually, in the bottom right corner, is the Twitter handle of the person who makes them, at Jeffinetly Jeff. I had the link before. Oh, right. I just can't remember what the hell the Twitter icon looks like anymore because it's a stupid X. There. That is all of them. He also has another link that has the full breakdown on all of the deck list numbers, because like there's a couple decks that will not show up on any of these lists because they have so few players, namely Ravemon, Examon, D Reaper, Beelstar, Blue Green Imperial, all had 1 player. Then there was also Metal Garuru, D Brigade, Black Omni, had 2 players each. Hang on, I have to go deal with a thing. Hey, shut up. I was actually mostly closing the door, but still. What was I saying? Black Omni had 2, then Megidra, Masta, Gaiomon-based Greymon, and Armor all had 3. 4 Gallant players, although I will say one of the Gallant players took 39th. No distinction on whether it was Gillant or Gallant, but meh. And then 5 Millith, 5 Jesmon, 6 Security Control, and 7 Crossheart. I think this might be win percentage. There's a final page that isn't included in the info docs we'll be going through, that includes conversion rate, which I'm just gonna say Hunter's is on this, but Hunter's conversion rate is terrifying. There were 12 Hunters players, which means they made up 3% of the entire play base on the 29th? Yes. We just saw that one of them took second. How many of them was it? One of them took second, one took 7th, and one took 15th. Basically, Hunters players had a 25% conversion rate to the top everything. The other breakdown here, let me just go grab the damn thing before I forget about it. Where is it? In one of the tweets? Yes, okay. So the full chart is at... Oh, god damn it, this is gonna be slightly annoying. The fun part about doing everything live. Okay. If you want the full information on conversion rates and such, assuming... Oh, wait, I'm... good, when you type something wrong and miss a period. Okay, yes. If you want the full information on... Yeah, the problem is that it's editing that I need to do before Gen Con and a regional on Thursday. On conversion rates and such, that would be that, which does also include stuff like the fact that there's one Ravemon player, one Examon player, one D-Reaper. I feel really bad about the D-Reaper because they took 351st. Oh, also, just because someone mentioned security control, the highest placing security control, we'll get to this in a little bit, but the highest placing security control was 68th. 68th. They literally did not crack top 64. Where it belongs. Look, I'm gonna level with you. My forever annoyance thing is that set control isn't a control-based deck. It's not a control deck. It's a tempo deck, and I hate that we're stuck with this terminology now. Anyway. This is just a slightly more expanded version of the first image. This one that was the most popular decks. This is the more expanded one to show all of the pieces where we have at least a couple of things. I would like you to note that there are 5 Millith players. Also, I believe the way this is broken down is that it counts like 2 and 1 as like it doesn't. These aren't counted on rounds. These are counted on individual games. So that's why there are 10 for Millith, but that still means that the 5 Millith players ran into each other repeatedly. That or one Millith player had a really bad time. Also, cute little note that because there were so few Crossheart, we don't have a great example, and we don't know what version of Crossheart these folks were playing, since there's X7, X7 Superior, and Merva Cross that are all arguably still viable. So we don't have a ton of data to base it off of, but it is amusing to me still. The Cross is doing well against, or did well against, 2 different versions of Greymon, but not great against Shine, which personally that is my lived experience. And the drop-off on Beal's players is absurd. Machine Dramon went bad. Machine Dramon has some weird issues. Like, Machine has the benefit against, has a slight benefit against Shine, because Shine's only removal is DP based, so if they're using EX1 Machindra, they're fine. However, notably, oh, Machine's always been bad, but it's fun. However, notably, Machine does run into one very fun and deeply annoying issue when facing off against Shine. Because they run BT11 Metal Tyrannomon, who is an all-turns effect. When this Digimon deletes another by battle, trash the top card of security. Fun fact, the way that process is different based on whether you're in control and it's you have turn priority, or the Shine player does if you say, kill a Marcus. Because if you, the Machine Dramon player, are turn priority, what happens is the combat finishes, congratulations, you killed a Marcus. 2 abilities just triggered. 3 if you're like me and are playing against Machine Dramon and feel really bad about this because you have 2 different Rise Greymons on board. Metal Tyrannomon to trash top of security, and the Rise Greymons to put a Marcus from trash on top of security. If it is the Machine Dramon's turn, the trash happens first, then the Shine player puts a Marcus on top of their security from trash for each Rise Greymon that they have. Yes, really. However, if the Marcus dies during their turn, and you blocked it with, or redirected the attack of the Marcus into Machine Dramon, they put the Marcus on top first, or 2 Marcuses in my hypothetical. That wasn't a hypothetical because it happened to me during the Winna case. Then you trash. And that has already screwed up a non-zero amount of folks, so it's gonna be a thing. Meanwhile, as we look at the rest of this, like, Raid War Grey continues to actually have a pretty good win rate, except against Blue Flare, because, look, I'm never gonna understand why it is that Blue Flare doesn't show up more often, because it does very well against quite a few things, except for when it's getting its face punched in. But most of the time, I find Blue Flare is one of the more consistent blue decks. I'm just kind of surprised we don't see it more often. Looks like Hunters is... I hate this information a little bit because Hunters looks viable, and I love my idiot Hunter children, and I want to play it, and I'm doing 3 regionals this week, so maybe I will! I need to be stopped, but I want to. Virus Greymon, which I believe they're... I'm not 100% sure what they're thinking of as Virus Greymon, but I think it's more focused on being a Black War Grey line. The confusion is that they also have Gaiomon as its own thing, but I think that's using EX4 Gaiomon to do the weird slide evolution into BT9? Is it BT9 Gaiomon? Yeah. Alphamon has a surprisingly good win rate too, just in general. I will note that I don't think this includes ties, because Alpha has a very bad habit of tying against Royal Knights. If you've not seen this, it's kind of impressive to see, but it's something. And I think you can also see sort of the issue that I was trying to bring up with Belphemon here, which is that Belphemon has a remarkably solid win rate in general, but as with a lot of good purple decks, it looks like it's going to have a lower win rate because, quite frankly, I think a lot of people are trying it, not necessarily clicking with it. And as soon as you lose a game or two, suddenly you're in a slightly lower bracket and you're playing against, apparently, the third most popular deck, Mirage Gaugamon, who just hard destroys you. But by losing early, they sort of knock themselves out of the running and just keep playing to try and maintain good prizes, which then makes life harder for the Belphemon players too, who are playing kind of a weird deck. Should also be noted that despite the fact that Shine Gray is, again, the most populous deck at 79 players, sadly, I did check, none of them are at 69, it's still only maintaining a 50%-ish win rate, which, yeah, means it actually has a really bad conversion rate to topping this event. Would you be surprised to know that because, again, there were 12 Hunters players, Hunters have the fucking best conversion rate? Like, they were 6.47 times more likely to get into the top 16 than any other deck list. Which, yes, there's a bias there for there being fewer of them, so more of them placing highly aggressively adjusts the information, but still. And then this is the... Yes. Oh, no, there's one more image after this. So then we've got our... This is the, like, simplified version of the second link that I threw in, which is just how much information we have about all of them. So like I said, 79 Shine Greymon decks, making up 19%. And yet, technically a lower conversion, a less than 1 times conversion rate to top 8. Nowhere near as bad, or top 16, nowhere near as bad as Mirage Gauga, who did not touch top 16, and apparently only barely broke into top 32. And from those numbers, I would guess that there's basically that one Mirage Gauga who hit top 31, and just, that's it. Like, with that number, I believe that means there's just the one who top 64'd. So, yeah. Notably, I think that means All Force is doing a lot better, because All Force down at the bottom, only 5 players, had one take 12, and with different conversion rates for everything else, which to my brain, who's never very good with statistics, reads to me as there is more than one All Force in the top 32. Just one Gaugastan doing their best. Yeah. Look, the deck is weird, and the card is written very poorly, and I hate it. But yeah. This is one of those things where it's just like, this is amazing information, and I know that I'm definitely not getting as much out of it as I possibly could, but I love that it exists, and I want more people to be aware that Jeffinetly Jeff is doing this, because it's fucking amazing. And it's so nice to see the perspective of, yes, everyone expected Shine to be the busted deck. And now we have hard numbers to show that while it was the most populous, no, turns out it's not just a winning in the same way that in a lot of cases, arguably, Bills could be, but was not always. Hell, in this case, the top placing Beelzemon, which, yes, it has been hit, was 86th. 86th. Yeah. Also, quite frankly, I have to say, I love that Royal Knights is doing work here. Because I feel like a lot of people were shitting on Royal Knights ahead of time, expecting it to not be a powerhouse of a deck. And, well, no, it's not the most powerful thing we've ever seen. It is one of the most functional and, I'm not even going to say interesting, but it's one of the most functional toolbox pseudo-zoo decks that we've had. Like, it does toolbox better than Greymon toolbox is doing toolbox right now, and I like that. Plus, it's a deck where the only egg you're running says breeding 4 times on it in reference to the author's barely disguised kink. And I just had to get that joke out at least once today, or I was going to explode. Sorry, some of the padding on my chair is trying to escape. This poor chair is so old. Anyway, we have one more image that I wanted to go over real quick, which is just this is a very quick breakdown of players in the top 20%. So this is literally only 82 players, and I'm going to point out right now, one of the reasons why I wanted to do it is because now that I've put together that those are games, not matches, you see how Shine has 2 matches against Alpha? Those are mine. Both of those are mine. Both of those matches are mine. Because in very near the end, I had my 2 matches against my 1 match against Alpha when we just did the 2 games. So both of those are mine because I took 35th in this with Shine. I'm not a statistical anomaly. I'm adding to our information base for the future. But yes, I like that we can see this. Unfortunately, Hunters doesn't show up here because, again, there were 12 of them. There were 12 of them, and almost all of them made it into top 64, but... actually, okay, sorry. Let me make this clear. There were 12 Hunters players. My brain remembered how math works. There were 12 Hunters players. 3 of them made it into the top 16. Those are the same 3, aka 25% of the Hunters player base, who made it into the top 64 and top 32. So we have very few games to see Hunters here because of that. So those 3 Hunters players are actually the statistical anomaly, and I love it. I will note that this does make it look like it's much worse to have the Shine cross match, which kind of makes sense. But, oh goodness, that a 0% win rate out of 6 games is a little rough. It's just a little rough. But in everything else Hunters did, it actually did have a positive win rate, but all of those were against Greymon. Not Hunters, sorry, Crossheart. Crossheart, not Hunters. I do like I appreciate this mostly just for the fact that when you get down to looking at high players, high player placement as opposed to stoned players, you get a very weird shift where Alpha and Cross were not present if you just look at popular decks. Mirage also stops being here because there was apparently a player who made it into top 64 with Mirage. I just find that to be remarkably interesting information to have, is just how differently it goes once you manage to like how a very few number of losses will effectively lock you into playing an entirely different subset of players. Because one loss and you're probably still facing off against Shines, you're still probably facing off against Greymons, probably Royal Knights, maybe Blue Flare. But as soon as you go to more than one loss, you're suddenly now in an entirely different universe where you're playing against things like Mirage Gaugamon and a lot of other weirder stuff. And I like that. I like how fundamentally different that is, but also how that means we can kind of see that Shine does seem to be functioning to an extent, because it's still only 20% of the field, but it is... I hate to use this, but my brain was already thinking about the Fermi paradox, but Shine is kind of acting as a filter. It's the, can you kill Shine? Because if not, when you run into a Shine, you're probably going to get then shunted down to the weirder play space and start having to deal with stranger stuff. And if you can handle Shine, then this is the field that you'll be seeing. And I point out that at least in North American regionals where we're doing these 526 person events, in this case it was 414, but 526 is the max. My first match was Shine against Shine, and I lost. And that meant that I entered basically I am living in the filter. So I spent my entire regional mostly just playing Shine mirrors. Like, I still have it saved somewhere if I don't remember where the hell I threw it, but functionally I had, it was an 8-round event. I went through all of those rounds. 4 of my 8 rounds were against Shine Greymon players. So the second that you lose your second game, suddenly you drop into a much stranger and arguably more varied, but much stranger world of decks, and I kind of like that that's a thing. And that, yeah, Shine is the gate, Shine is the filter to an extent. It's a very strange world, and I like it, though. Oh god, there's another 2 regionals to talk about. I hope you enjoyed that wild ride with me. If you enjoyed what you saw, please consider subbing here on YouTube, or you can find this exact same content live over on Twitch at twitch.tv/layeroflore. You can find everything that I do over at beacons.ai/layeroflore, or just go to layeroflore.com and you'll be able to find everything. As a reminder, thank you very much for your support, because everything that I do is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you very much to April, Fragile Paper, Pinball Witch, Yalc, and Pimento. I quite literally could not do this without all of you. Thank you for your support over on patreon.com/layeroflore and coffee.com/layeroflore. I hope y'all have fun with this and anything else on my channel. It's gonna be a long week.